She doesn't ignore you because you're not good enough. She ignores you because she knows, deep down, you'd still chase her anyway. And that right there is the real reason you never had a chance. Not because you're unattractive, not because you're lacking value, but because you never made her feel the cost of losing you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to expose 7 dark psychology tricks that reverse this dynamic and make her fear your absence more than she ever valued your presence. But before you watch, ask yourself this: are you ready to stop chasing and start being the one she chases? Before we dive into these 7 tricks, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. I read every single comment, and it shows me how many men out there have been stuck in the same emotional trap, giving too much, getting too little, and wondering what went wrong. Now let's get back to the story, because what you're about to hear isn't just a list of clever tactics. It's a breakdown of how female psychology really works and why most men never get past the surface. Once you understand these 7 tricks, you'll stop guessing and start leading. Number 1. The art of scarcity. If there's one law of human desire that's been true for centuries, it's this: we chase what's rare and we devalue what's abundant. You see it everywhere, from luxury brands to limited edition sneakers. But when it comes to dating, most men completely forget this rule. They offer themselves like clearance items, always available, always agreeable, always on standby. And then they wonder why she treats them like background noise. Here's the truth most men ignore. Women aren't drawn to men who make themselves available at her convenience. They're drawn to the man who makes her question whether she can access him at all. That's not manipulation. That's psychology. Scarcity doesn't mean disappearing. It means building a life so full, so rich, so purpose-driven that being with you feels like a privilege, not a convenience. One of my clients used to text his crush back within seconds. After our first session, I told him, "Don't fake being busy. Be so genuinely engaged with your mission that you forget to check your phone." 3 weeks later, she was texting him first, chasing his attention. Why? Because women aren't attracted to a man who drops everything for them. They're pulled to the man who values his time and makes her earn it. Here's how you apply this principle. Step 1. Stop performing scarcity. Start living it. Fill your schedule with meaningful pursuits, not distractions. Hit the gym. Build your business. Protect your calendar like your future depends on it. Because it does. And when she texts, don't rush to reply. Let your actions show that you've got things to do, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've built a life worth protecting. Step 2. Quality over quantity. Stop trying to impress her with daily attention. Instead, create a single moment so unforgettable it lingers in her mind for days. One deeply meaningful date beats 10 lazy hangouts. Why? Because it forces her to reevaluate what kind of man you are. Not easily replaceable, not always available, and definitely not predictable. Step 3. Stay emotionally centered. Scarcity only works if you're not anxiously counting how long it's been since she replied. You don't get pulled into the emotional tug-of-war. You don't flinch. That calm, grounded energy is rare, and that's exactly why it pulls her in. You're not trying to be scarce to get her attention. You're scarce because your attention is valuable. Your time is costly. Your life is full. That's not a tactic. That's a standard. The man who truly understands this never has to beg for interest. He creates it by living in a way that commands it, because a man who's always around is forgettable. But a man who's rare, who shows up with intention, then disappears into purpose, becomes the man she can't stop thinking about. And remember, it's not about reducing your presence. It's about increasing your value to the point where your absence makes noise. That's the art of scarcity, and it's only the beginning. Number 2, the power of calculated indifference. Here's a painful reality. The more emotionally reactive you are to a woman's behavior, the more invisible you become to her desire system. I've worked with hundreds of men who fall into the same trap. She takes hours to reply. He spirals. She uses a dry tone. He overanalyzes. She doesn't initiate. He doubles down. More texts, more reassurance, more validation. And without fail, she loses interest. Why? Because every time you react to her emotional shifts, you send a subtle message. You control how I feel. And nothing destroys attraction faster than a man who surrenders emotional control. This is where the principle of calculated indifference comes in. It's not about being passive-aggressive. It's not about acting like you don't care. It's about creating emotional stability so strong, it becomes magnetic. Let me tell you about James, a client who used to obsess over every interaction. If his date didn't laugh at a joke, he questioned himself for days. If she seemed distant, he immediately tried to fix it. After working together, I gave him one rule: mirror her energy. Nothing more, nothing less. If she gives low investment, match it. If she gives effort, meet her there. But never lead with emotional overcommitment. The result? She started chasing him, not because he played games, but because his energy stopped screaming, "Please validate me." Here's how you master this principle. Step 1. Emotional self-containment. This means no one, especially not someone you're just dating, has the power to disrupt your peace. If she's distant, you're steady. If she's cold, you stay warm, but grounded. You respond, not react. Step 2. Energy mirroring. Women don't respond to effort alone. They respond to tension, contrast, and calibration. If she texts one-word answers, you don't send 3 paragraphs. You match pace, tone, effort. This signals high social awareness and value. Step 3. Controlled unpredictability. Here's the twist. Once she thinks she's figured you out, disrupt the pattern. If she expects warmth, give her distance. If she expects distance, give her depth. This subtle inconsistency keeps her psychologically engaged, because uncertainty breeds desire. The key here is authentic neutrality, not emotional detachment. You're not shutting down your feelings. You're leading them. You're not avoiding connection. You're refusing to beg for it. When a woman sees that her behavior doesn't throw you off, she starts to trust your frame. And once she trusts your frame, she's pulled into your emotional orbit. But here's the danger. Many men misapply this. They suppress emotion instead of mastering it. They ghost instead of leading. That's not power. That's avoidance. Real calculated indifference is built on this mindset. I'd love to build something real with you. But if your energy isn't aligned with mine, I'll keep moving, without resentment, without drama, without delay. It's not indifference to her. It's indifference to anything that threatens your peace, purpose, or emotional balance. When a woman senses that, she doesn't just see you as attractive. She sees you as safe, as different, as powerful. And in today's dating world, emotional control isn't just rare, it's irresistible. Number 3. The art of creating perceived value. There's a painful paradox in dating. The more you try to prove your value to a woman, the less valuable you appear. Think about it. You talk about your career. You list your accomplishments. You casually name-drop your car, your gym routine, your crazy schedule. She nods, smiles. But deep down, she's already losing interest. Why? Because real value doesn't shout. It whispers. And the moment you try to sell her on how great you are, you trigger suspicion, not attraction. Here's what most men don't understand. Value is never about how much you say. It's about what she discovers without you having to say anything at all. That's perceived value. And it's far more powerful than anything you can force. One of my clients, Alex, was a high-performing attorney making mid-6 figures. But he couldn't hold a woman's attention for more than a few weeks. Why? Because every date felt like a job interview. Bullet pointing his resume. I told him to do one thing. Stop broadcasting his success. Start letting her experience it. Instead of talking about his cases, I had him take business calls within earshot, calmly, confidently. Instead of bragging about his discipline, I had him lead his lifestyle silently: early morning gym, clean eating, structured time. She noticed, she asked questions, she got curious, and that curiosity, that's emotional gold. Here's how you master this principle. Step 1. Build real value behind the curtain. That means get your money right, your body right, your mindset right, not to impress her, but because you refuse to be average. Women can feel when a man's value is lived, not performed. Step 2. Create the value vacuum. Stop filling silence with stories about yourself. Ask questions. Listen. Make her feel like the center of the room, and then drop small hints of who you are. Let her pull the story out of you. The more she works to uncover it, the more she treasures it. Step 3. Understate everything. If you've achieved something great, speak of it lightly. If she compliments your success, smile and redirect to something deeper. When you speak less of yourself, others start speaking more about you. Now here's the dark psychology twist. When a woman discovers your value, without you pushing it, it activates the reward system in her brain. It creates a sense of earned intimacy, the feeling that she's accessing a layer of you others don't get to see. That creates emotional investment, and emotional investment builds psychological dependency. But here's the warning: never fake your value. That's social suicide. Women are biologically wired to detect inauthenticity. And once they sense you're bluffing, the attraction collapses instantly. Everything she uncovers has to be real, lived, earned, not exaggerated, not polished, just deeply integrated into who you are. Because in modern dating, women don't fall for perfection. They fall for patterns, energy, identity. So remember this: the most magnetic man in the room isn't the one bragging about his lifestyle. It's the one whose lifestyle speaks for itself, while he stays quietly in control. That's the art of perceived value, and it's what separates the men she forgets from the ones she can't stop thinking about. Number 4. Creating psychological dependency. Attraction gets her attention, but dependency keeps her emotionally hooked. Here's something most men never realize. Women don't become attached to men who are always sweet, predictable, and emotionally available. They become attached to men who create an emotional rhythm, a subtle push and pull that mimics the way our brains form addiction. It's not cruelty, it's chemistry. Let me explain. In behavioral psychology, there's a principle called intermittent reinforcement. It's how casinos keep people glued to slot machines, not with constant reward, but with unpredictable wins. Just enough dopamine to keep you hooked, but not enough to feel secure. Relationships operate the same way, especially at the subconscious level. I had a client named David. Good guy, loyal, consistent, generous. He texted good morning every day, complimented her constantly, showed up for everything, and slowly, she lost interest. Why? Because there was no emotional contrast, no unpredictability, no spark. I taught him to stop creating comfort and start creating tension. Here's how you do it ethically and effectively. Step 1. Create emotional peaks and valleys. When you're present, be fully present. Deep eye contact, playful tension, vulnerable moments. You give her a feeling she doesn't get anywhere else, but then you disengage. Not out of manipulation, but because you've got a life to live. Space becomes the soil where longing grows. Step 2. Break the routine. Predictability is safe, but it's not addictive. If she's used to talking every night, skip one. If she expects a weekend together, suggest time apart. The mind craves what it can't predict, and that craving creates obsession. Step 3. Leverage micro-uncertainty. Subtle changes in tone, timing, or energy keep her guessing, not in a toxic way, but in a way that activates curiosity. She wonders what you're thinking, she questions what you're feeling, and that wondering keeps her mind occupied with you. The goal isn't to play games, it's to create emotional depth. Women bond through contrast, through moments that feel electric, followed by space to reflect on those moments. That's how dependency forms. Not from constant presence, but from intentional absence after impact. But here's the catch. The valley only works if the peak was unforgettable. So don't confuse silence with impact. Don't pull away if you haven't first given her something to miss. I call it emotional time dilation. When you're with her, time flies. When you're gone, time drags. That's what hooks her nervous system. And it's 100% psychological. Now, let's be clear. This is not about trauma bonding, manipulation, or mind games. If you're doing this to feel power, you've already lost it. This is about creating a dynamic emotional experience that she starts to associate with you. And once that pattern is built, you become her source of emotional elevation and withdrawal. She's not just thinking about you. She's thinking about how she feels when she's around you and when you're not. That's dependency. That's control. And if you use it responsibly, it creates connections stronger than words ever could. Number 5, reading and leading psychology. Most men listen to what a woman says. The smart ones, they watch what she does. But the rarest and most powerful men, they read why she does it and lead her there. Let me tell you something brutally honest. Women rarely say exactly what they mean. Not because they're dishonest, but because emotions are layered. What she says, what she feels, and what she needs are often 3 different things. Your job isn't to decode her words. It's to decode her patterns, her signals, her emotional fingerprints. One of my clients, Tyler, was constantly confused. His date would cancel plans but get jealous when he posted stories with other women. She said she needed space, but acted distant when he gave it. He thought she was confusing. I told him she was consistent, just on an emotional frequency he couldn't read yet. That's where psychological reading comes in. Here's how to master it. Step 1, watch micro behaviors. Her pupils dilate when she's excited. Her tone softens when she feels safe. Her breathing shifts when she's aroused, even if she says nothing. Don't just focus on words. Read the body's data. Step 2, understand emotional contrast. If she pulls away after intimacy, it's not rejection. It's a vulnerability response. If she tests you with sarcasm, it's not disrespect. It's her checking your frame. Once you decode what emotion is driving her action, you gain control of the frame. Step 3, lead the emotion. This is where power lives. Say she's guarded. Instead of pushing harder, slow down, show her emotional safety without needing to explain it. Say she's anxious. Don't talk her down. Match her energy, then gradually lower your own to regulate her state. This is what I call emotional pacing. You meet her where she is, and then lead her somewhere better. Not through logic, not through persuasion, but through presence. Here's a real example. One client had a woman who'd shut down emotionally during arguments. Instead of pushing her to talk, I told him to slow his speech, lower his tone, and reduce intensity. Within minutes, she began opening up, not because he won the argument, but because he led the emotional climate. When you show her you understand her emotional state better than she can articulate it herself, something shifts. She stops resisting. She starts trusting. And trust is what creates emotional permission. She gives you access not because you forced it, but because she felt you earned it. This is why most men fail. They try to convince her logically, but women don't fall for logic. They fall for emotional direction. You don't need to be a therapist. You need to be attuned. Her energy drops, you feel it. Her vibe shifts, you clock it. Her emotional rhythm changes, you adjust, but never lose your own center. Because when you can read her psychology and then lead her emotionally with steadiness, not force, you become more than a man in her life. You become her emotional anchor. And that kind of presence? It's rare, it's grounding, and she won't be able to walk away from it, even if she tries. Number 6. The power of strategic silence. Most men fear silence. They think it means something's wrong, that they're losing her, that they need to fix it immediately, so they over-explain, over-text, overshare. But here's the truth most men never grasp. In dating, silence isn't weakness, it's a weapon. Used correctly, it creates tension, intrigue, power. Used carelessly, it becomes distance, confusion, resentment. Strategic silence is not just about staying quiet. It's about knowing exactly when silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Let me show you how. A client of mine, Michael, used to panic when his girlfriend pulled away. He'd chase with messages, call repeatedly, try to talk it out. But every time he reached out to close the emotional gap, she pulled further. So I gave him a different strategy: say nothing. When she sent a passive-aggressive comment, no response. When she pulled away without explanation, he didn't chase. Instead, he observed and held frame. 3 days later, she messaged him asking, "Are you okay? You've been quiet." That's not indifference. That's power. That's silence doing the talking. Here's how to master strategic silence. Step 1. Learn to identify tension. Not all silence is created equal. If she's emotionally invested and throws a test, a sarcastic remark, a delayed reply, or vague coldness, do not rush to fix it. Let the silence stretch. Step 2. Use response silence. If she says something disrespectful, instead of confronting it emotionally, go silent, not as a punishment, but as a signal. Your absence of reaction becomes the reaction. She'll feel it and start recalibrating her behavior. Step 3. Use presence silence. This is when you're with her physically but emotionally still. No over-talking, no need to fill every gap. The right man's silence makes her feel secure, not uncertain. It shows strength, the kind that doesn't need noise to be felt. Step 4. Deploy disappearance silence when necessary. You don't explain, you don't announce. You simply shift your energy elsewhere, not in spite, not in revenge, but because your time and presence are earned, not assumed. The psychology behind this is simple. Humans are wired to assign meaning to silence. And in dating, silence creates a psychological vacuum, a space where her mind starts asking questions. Did I cross a line? Why isn't he reacting? Is he losing interest? And that uncertainty, it pulls her toward you far more effectively than any validation could. But here's the warning. Strategic silence only works when it comes from emotional control, not emotional avoidance. You're not ghosting, you're not sulking. You're guiding the emotional tempo by choosing not to overplay your position. And most importantly, you never use silence to punish. You use it to invite awareness. Because a man who can sit with discomfort, without flinching, explaining, or defending, sends one clear message: I don't chase chaos, I reward alignment. That's the type of energy that flips the dynamic. She starts leaning in, apologizing, reflecting, because your silence didn't come from insecurity, it came from sovereignty. And in the world of dating, nothing is louder than the man who knows when to say nothing at all. Number 7. Control through perceived freedom. Here's a paradox most men never understand. The more you try to control a woman, the more she slips through your fingers. But when you give her freedom, real, unapologetic freedom, she becomes obsessed with staying. Not because she has to, because she chooses to. This is what I call invisible control, the ability to shape her decisions without ever forcing them. Let me explain. A client of mine, let's call him Robert, was constantly trying to lock things down. He'd plan everything, call constantly, ask where she was, who she was with, what she wanted. His intentions were good, but his energy reeked of control. And women can smell control, even when it's disguised as care. She pulled away, fast, So I flipped his script. I told him, let her breathe. And while she's breathing, structure the air. Here's how you do it. Step 1. Offer guided options, not commands. Instead of saying, let's have dinner Friday, say, I'm free, Friday or Sunday. What works for you? Same outcome, but now she feels in control, while you still frame the situation. Step 2. Embrace detachment. When she pulls away emotionally, don't chase. Say something like, hey, take all the space you need. I'm here when you're clear on what you want. This reverse pressure creates what I call the freedom bind. The more room she gets, the more she feels pulled back to you. Because here's the secret. Women aren't attracted to men who need to control them. They're drawn to men who can let go without losing themselves. Step 3. Architect her choices. Don't force, frame. If you want to shift the dynamic, don't argue. Ask questions that lead her where you want her to go. Instead of saying, I think we should be exclusive, say, what does a real relationship look like to you right now? Let her walk into the idea herself, because we commit more deeply to what we believe we chose. Psychologically, this creates ownership, and ownership breeds emotional investment. Step 4. Stay emotionally self-sufficient. True freedom-giving doesn't work if you're dying for her attention underneath. You must mean it. You must live it. She senses when your detachment is real and when it's just bait. When you master this, something fascinating happens. She starts to question herself. Why is he so calm? Why isn't he trying harder? What if he doesn't need me? And those questions, they make her value your presence even more, because she sees it's a choice, not a demand. This isn't manipulation. This is emotional alignment, creating a space where her freedom coexists with your leadership. You're not dragging her in. You're making her want to stay, because she knows you'll never try to trap her, but you'll also never beg her to stay. You're the man who leads by presence, not pressure, influences without force, and offers choice, knowing exactly how it ends. That's the highest level of control in modern dating, the kind that feels like freedom, but always moves in your direction. Let's be honest. If you've made it this far, something inside you already knew the truth, even before I said a word, that everything you've been taught about love, effort, and being a good man has left you powerless. That chasing, pleasing, over-investing, it hasn't made her want you more. It's made her feel less, because in the end, attraction isn't about being nice. It's about being necessary. Now you have the code. You understand what most men never will, that power isn't a trick. It's not a pickup line. It's not a technique you borrow when you're desperate. It's a way of being. And when you master that, not just know it, but embody it, you stop trying to make women love you, because they'll feel it's their idea. Now here's your next move. Rewatch this video. Not to take notes, but to let it sink into your nervous system. Then apply one technique. Just one. Today. Because information without action is just distraction. But action, consistent, precise action, turns you into the kind of man she doesn't forget. The kind of man who never chases, because he doesn't need to. And if this message shook something deep inside you, subscribe, because the next videos I drop will go even deeper. And comment, I'm done chasing. This isn't just a video. This is a movement of men waking up, taking back control, and rewriting the rules of modern love on their terms.